Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of Leading on Mondays. My name is Florin, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today I'm joined by my teaching partner, Madalina Ghinescu. Welcome, Madalina.
Hey, Florin. Hello, everybody. I don't have the background now, so you're seeing me with my full, with my full room behind me, and I'm so happy to be here with you again because today we are going to discuss about the second dysfunction of a team that Lencioni was stated in his book, and we are going to discuss about the fear of conflict and the workplace in teamwork and how leaders can deal with this. And second of all, what are the signs to find out if there is a lack or a fear of conflict in your team?
Absolutely. So why don't you introduce us to the topic a little bit more?
Yes, of course. I would like to start with what is the definition of conflict? Because once we have this kind of definition, well, it's a general definition of conflict, then we can identify when we have actual conflict in our team and when this kind of conflict is missing. And first of all, the definition is the conflict is actually an argument or a disagreement or an antagonistic state or action. And when we think about the fear of conflict is when people are avoiding the conflict, and we have several reasons why people usually avoid conflict. Because when we are talking about teamwork, when we are talking about environment, when we are thinking about the conflict can be good. And in Lencioni's opinion, yes, conflict is good when it's a productive conflict, because in the general how you call it,
Opinion or
in the
understand?
general opinion, yeah, and people who are studying the conflict and team working, they identified there might be four types of conflict inside the team, and we can just think about them to figure out if we have this kind of conflict in our team. So the first conflict will be the status conflict, when people are not are disagreeing with who is in charge. It might be the manager, it might be a team leader, it might be somebody who is giving us something to do. And when we have this kind of status conflict with this, we are disagreeing with whoever is in charge. The second kind of conflict is the task conflict, which means that we are disagreeing on what needs to be done, or we are disagreeing on the goal that we need to go through.
Right.
The third type of conflict is the process conflict, which means that we are disagreeing related to how things are done. And the
Right.
fourth, yeah, and the fourth kind of conflict is this is actually the main visible one. The first three ones are not that visible, but the third conflict is the most visible one, which is the relationship conflict. And this is when we are disagreeing on how somebody behaves. And when we usually think about conflict, we think about the disagreement between a person and another person, which is in a relationship point of view. So
Absolutely.
when we are thinking about the fear of conflict, we are thinking about how people are actually avoiding this kind of conflict in their own environments and in their workplace, because they are fear of something else. It's something bigger than that. It's something bigger than the conflict itself. But when we have this four kind of conflict in our team, it means that we are currently in a healthy environment, because at least people are expressing themselves, at least people are sharing their opinions. Okay, I don't agree with this, let's find out a solution, everybody to be on the same page and everybody to agree with something. But when people don't argue on anything, that means that they might have a lack of conflict.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, Florian, what might be the consequences of this kind of fear of conflict inside a team?
Yeah, such a good introduction. Thank you for sharing those kind of conflict. And I think where people think about conflict, they see it as a negative thing, right? So
Yeah.
who wants to have conflict in their teams? If you're a team leader or team manager, say, "Oh, I don't want conflict in my team. I want to get along with each other. We want to to collaborate and work as a team. But I think where this really makes the difference is when you are pursuing the best solution or the best outcome in a situation. If someone comes with an idea, right, and they say, well, I think we should go this way, and no one says anything, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends, and but I don't think it's such a great idea that nobody has anything to say about that.
Right. So it could be, right, it could be that this is a brilliant idea, right, and people agree with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
in most cases, in most cases, when we use our collective wisdom, our collective knowledge, we could actually up level or improve, or ideas, right? And
yeah,
ideas, when they first are actually expressed, they are never kind of fully formed. So we need to kind of discuss them, look at them from different angles in order for them to really become a great idea. And so, with that in mind, think about not having any conflict, like people not challenging the idea. Like
yeah.
let's challenge. Like Lencioni talks about challenging the idea and looking at it from different perspective. Why is this a great idea? And what are the setbacks with this idea? And if we don't have that kind of interaction, and sometimes getting into conflictual discussions, right? That's where we're missing out, right? That's the kind of conflict people are avoiding, and it's because they don't like to maybe upset other people. They don't like to hurt other people's feelings. And many times we identify with the idea, and so if you would say, Florin, that's a stupid idea, I'll say, well, okay, so if it's my idea, then it means that I'm stupid, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People might think, yeah, people might think like that because
Yeah,
they don't relate to what it said about the situation. It relates, okay, if it's a stupid idea, that means I'm stupid, which
yeah,
is not the case, which is not true. It's just the idea that it's stupid,
yeah.
not you. And this might be, yeah, the starting point for a conflict in the team.
Exactly, and not a healthy one, right? Not a productive
Yeah,
one.
not a healthy one.
So,
Exactly, not a
so
healthy one.
to get back to your question, like what are the signs of not necessarily the signs, but the consequences of lack of conflict and fear of conflict? I think as a leader, as a team members, we're gonna spend more time trying to avoid politics and discuss about things that we know are not taking us forward as a team, but we just don't feel like having those conversations. We're gonna, instead of us looking at a topic, discuss it, and then move forward, which then leads us to the kind of next dysfunction, for people to commit. If the idea has not been discussed, has not been challenged, then people will not commit. And so we need to go
Mhm.
back and revisit those. We need to, instead of us being honest in our communication and straightforward, we're going to use like back channels, because we don't want to take that conversation in front of everyone. We're going to discuss, well, I don't really agree with that, but I didn't want to say to my manager. So you discuss that at the coffee machine or the water cooler. And what happens is that people are not expressing their ideas, right? And we're not tapping into the collective wisdom of the team if people are not doing that. This fear of conflict means that important topics and critical topics will be ignored, because we don't want to get on in those situations where people will have different opinions. And if we are afraid of handling that situation, if we are afraid of people maybe raising their voice, or being passionate about those ideas, then we don't really discuss those topics. So we just move to something different, but we fail to tap into the ideas and opinions of people. And also, we waste a lot of time and energy into into handling the interpersonal relationship. What I mean by that is more like it becomes a high maintenance relationship. If I have to be very careful, what words do I use, what do I say, how I say it, so I'm not offending you, rather than us as a collective team looking for the best solution, then I'm actually focusing my energy somewhere else. So rather than working on the goal, I'm trying to avoid offending other people. And when that becomes, more energy is put into making sure that I don't hurt Madalina when I'm gonna share with her that we need to improve something on this project, then I feel, okay, this is not actually productive, because either rather than me spending time on the project, I spend time on, dealing with Madalina's feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
those are some consequences that I think are really serious, actually.
Wow. This reminds me of something like when you mentioned about to nurturing other people's feelings, and this also goes in our personal lives, not only in our environment, work environment. Because when you think about, you actually waste a lot of energy and time, and you feel frustrated and anxious because you examine the way you want to say, and you don't say it as it is because you don't want to have an argument or a conflict inside your family and with your close friends. So it's very, very important that this fear of conflict also is present in our personal lives. And there is one more thing that I really want to state it again, because this is very important for everybody to understand. When we are discussing about this fear, this dysfunctions in a team, inside a team, this fear of conflict is actually based with the absence of trust. When there is no trust among people, of course, they will be less and less willing to express their own feelings, to express their own opinions, because they are avoiding the conflict. Why? Because they don't have trust between each other. So we can discuss now about how to identify the signs that there is a fear of conflict inside the team or inside our families. It's also important to look at ourselves and around us, not only in the work environment. And the first sign I would say is that people are not, let's say, are trying to weigh things down, to make it calm, to be patient, to not to start an argument. So when you are trying to, let's say, to discuss somebody or with something, or you have an opinion, let's say, for example, what do you think about we taking on with this project, with we as a team taking on this project? There is a new client, we have this new opportunity to have this project implemented for that company. What would you say? Should we take it? Shouldn't we take it? And maybe somebody in our team says, well, not says, thinks, well, if we take this project, that would mean a lot of work for everybody else. We don't have enough expertise. We might have some problems with the implementation. We are not ready enough now. So we might lose the client eventually because we are not as professional as we should in this project. But guess what? Because it's a fear of conflict, that person, and of course absence of trust, first of all, that person won't say anything in the meeting.
Yeah, and they might say
Because
with their colleagues, at the coffee machine, right?
yeah, and they will gossip afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, the boss said this, but I really don't think this is a good idea. And
yeah,
guess what? They won't say it to the manager's face. Why? Because they don't trust the manager.
yeah,
And they don't trust the people if they actually share their opinions, because it might be a very valid opinion. And
absolutely.
maybe not, this is not the only person who will say something about that. Because if they put every part of their personal opinions, if they put it on in front of their, on the table to discuss everything, it might come with a very good solution. They might take the project, but they need to be aware of this and this, and everybody is sharing. And then they will find the solutions. How can we implement this to be good for the client and also to be good for us? But if they don't say anything, they will just wait for the ship to sink.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know?
and then come back and say, oh, I knew it all the time. I knew it from the beginning that this is
From
not
the
going to work.
beginning. Yeah, this is not going
And
to
why
work.
didn't you say it? Well, you didn't ask me.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
didn't ask me, and that's
You
where
didn't ask me exactly.
the leader actually has to, manage and take care of the conversation. In other words, to allow people time and to allow people the opportunity to share their opinions. If you just
Mhm.
put that on the table, and if there is like 5 seconds of silence, you move on. So then then I get it. Then it means that we all agree. So let's move on. Well, I'm not sure if that kind of silence means that people agree. Some people need
Yeah,
more
usually.
time to think, right, before they express, and they don't want to be the first saying that. So that's
Yeah.
what the leader could do in order to make sure that people speak their minds. So
So it's
what are more signs that you?
yeah. First of all, I will just add something here. Just first
Sure.
of all, you as a leader read the room and keep this in mind. Bear this in mind that people fear of conflict. They have this fear of conflict, and then they might not share exactly what their opinion is exactly, especially in a team meeting. So when you have this silence and people are not sharing, just talk to each individual in person, because then maybe they will trust you as a leader, but they don't trust to express themselves in a meeting. So in that case, just go ahead and discuss with each individual, because you might find the gold there. So another sign would be when people are teaming up. Yeah, so they take sides, and you see a lot of people are gossiping. You hear people gossiping. You hear in the maybe at the coffee corner, or at the water corner, or at lunch, or during the cigarettes break. You hear people that they actually are very intrigued of what is discussing, or it was discussing. So
Mhm.
then when you see that people are taking sides, or people are gossiping, then you might understand that if they are sharing this their point of view directly with others in a team meeting, they might be afraid to do that because they have the fear of conflict.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, people are very, very brave to share their opinions behind your back. Well, your back, others people back, not only your back. So people are very, very, very brave to share their opinions behind somebody's back. But when they are confronted, they are silent. They don't say anything, or even they will place the blame.
Yeah. And that's a true problem, and yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's many times that way. In many times that way, the conflict is not actually um, is not unveiled in the meeting, and the manager or the leader might just be, have this, you know, not fake, but almost like fake peace. Like they believe, okay, if no one said anything, it means they agree, but it's just
Yeah,
that's
like a
not,
fake silence.
yeah, that's not the truth, yeah. but
Yes.
but I think what the managers actually and the leaders could do is to make sure that they bring some of these topics to the agendas of those meetings, right? So if they know that maybe the team is
Yes.
not going to bring those topics to the table, and they feel that the team doesn't want to discuss them, or they want to move forward to the next topic, as a manager or as a leader, you could almost like also call people out, and kind of, I really want to know your opinion, Madalina, and I
Mm-hmm,
really want to know
mm-hmm.
what you think, right? The
Yeah,
reason
yeah,
why
yeah.
we're discussing this is because, I really want us to discuss as a team, and I really want us to find the best solution. So tell me, what are you thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Exactly.
something that they could do.
But here is one thing. There is another sign that I didn't mention. But beware, you as a leader, beware of the pleasing behavior.
Mhm.
So let's say that you're talking about the topic with somebody in your team, and maybe in a team meeting. And if you're saying that, be very careful and pay attention to what the people is saying, because it might be the pleasing behavior coming out of them. And say, okay, what would my manager like me to say about this? That would be this, and this. But in my own mind, in my own opinion, I think otherwise. So be very patient, pay very close attention to this one, and challenge, but not in a conflict challenge, but just challenge the person with additional questions, just like in a coaching idea, just like in a coaching question. So what would you say about that? What would do you think it would be a better way to do that. Okay, I have this idea, but I'm not sure if this is the right way. What do you think? Just ask their opinions. So,
Yeah.
what would you think would be the consequences, the benefits, and the disadvantages if we do this?
Yeah, that's such a good point, and it
Yeah,
goes back to the first dysfunction, right? The fear of,
yeah,
sorry, the lack of trust.
the lack
But
of trust. Yeah.
also one of the episodes we've done in the past about feedback, right? This is where the leader has to ask for that kind of feedback from the team if they feel that the team is not uh, saying what they think, and they're saying what the leader or the managers want to hear, then it's their job to really read between the lines and ask more questions about that, and really say, well, I really, this time, maybe this was not in the past, but this time I really want to know what you're thinking. If you feel that they're not being truthful to you, and again, the way you would then take in that feedback says a lot about how you receive the feedback, and also will
Mhm.
give them, an indication. Do you really want to hear how things are going, or do you want us to sugarcoat the truth, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. This is something additional to what you said, because this we are already discussing, and we're already giving some of our opinions how a leader should handle this lack of
Sure.
conflict, fear of conflict.
Yes.
And I just realized now, it hit me now, about the disc method, the disc personalities. So
Sure.
when we need to pay attention to the people who are very straightforward and they are sharing their own opinions directly without any fear of conflict. They are just sharp and they don't care if somebody disagrees with them. So that will be the dominant personality, and they will say what's on their mind. But especially the people who are avoiding the conflict are the S personalities, the steady personality, which means that they are very eager to have a balance, to have a peace between people. So even though they don't agree, even though they don't agree with what you're saying or what you are suggesting, they won't say anything, because in their opinion, if they say something, that would be to disagree with you. And so the steady personality have this tendency to have a pleasing personality, and they will say anything just to keep things okay between you two, to have everything in a balance, to have peace among people in the team. So they, even though they might have a very good statement to say, a very very good opinion, a very important one that will help the whole team, they won't say anything, because they have a big fear of conflict, the big fear of not keeping the things the way they are in a relationship between people. So it's very
Absolutely.
important for you as a leader to remember this. Who is
Yeah.
the dominant, who is the most straightforward, and who is the steady, who has the tendency to be a steady kind of personality. So
Absolutely.
what other topics, oh sorry, what other advice you have for leaders to deal with conflict, fear of
Yeah,
conflict?
this is a really good one, and one way we help organizations to work with this dysfunction is to conducting these kind of assessments with their teams, right? And understanding what kind of personalities do we have on the teams, and then
Yeah.
be mindful of that. So okay, it's not enough to kind of know what personality we have on the team, but also to know that when we are going to discuss a topic, someone that is direct, as you mentioned, the D-type personalities, the direct ones, well, if they say something and might hurt someone else's feeling, they're not doing that because they're mean and they want to hurt someone. They're just looking for, kind of the best solution, and their communication is very straightforward. So it's also, it pays for the leader to know when, if Florin is direct and says something, is first his personality and communication style, coming to the surface, is not
Mhm.
that he wants conflict in the team. And if Madalina, or I'm just using your name as an example, might be the
Yeah, it's
steady
okay.
personality, right? Like if
Oh, I,
Madalina
I
might be
don't
this.
have the steady one. Yeah,
I
I
know
don't have
you're not. I
the
know you're
steady.
not. I know you're not. But if you would be, right? Then,
Yeah.
then if you're not speaking your mind, and maybe you need a little bit more time to think your answers through, and then maybe formulate it in a way that you don't hurt anyone, right? Because that's the steady personality, that's what they would do. Then again, you as a leader, you need to know, if you only allow the D's and the I's on your team to speak, you're never going to hear from the C's and the S's, because they're going to be, slower to speak. They're going to need more time in order for them to think through their answers and then share their opinion. So if it's not enough for you to know who you have on the team, then you also use this in discussion and say, okay, so, Florin, okay, I want to hear from Madalina too. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Florin. And now you take ownership as a leader of meetings. Hey, I want to hear from Madalina. What do you think, Madalina? And then allow to that silence, that it's sometimes painful, right? To hear
Painful
from
for
Madalina, right?
Yeah, it's very painful for the D and the I type of
Exactly.
personality. They're very into action, and they just speak their mind without thinking. So the S and the C in the this personality, yes, for them it might take a little bit more time to think, but if you give them this time to think and to answer, they will be open enough. Eventually they will open themselves and they will actually share with the team, but just give them a little bit of time and be okay with that. Everybody should be okay with uh, giving them a little more time to think,
Absolutely.
because they want to be very very careful with the relationship that they are having with other people. They don't want to ruin anything in those relationships, so that's
Yeah.
why they are needing that they are taking a little bit more time.
And as you just mentioned, their type of personality would be, they would like to be part of the group, to be included in the team. And if you put them in a situation where they might say something that have the team, kind of exclude them, they will not give you their full and honest opinion. They will say something not to hurt other people, so they're not excluded from the group. And that's also one of those, what you said, people pleasing behaviors. And that's why we help leaders to identify who they have on the team, how that communication shows up at work, and also through, tools like the leadership game that you play with teams, right? Then there are questions that we many times, choose before we play the session, to make sure that the team will discuss some of the topics that they don't usually discuss. Like if we know they have a fear of conflict, then we're gonna kind of stack the cards, right, in order for them to discuss the things that we want them to discuss, that we know will help them, move forward, and not staying in that
Mhm.
status quo.
Mhm. And also, there is one more thing that I usually use when I see an S personality and they have a lot of good ideas, but they're afraid to share them in public. Put them in pairs, group them in pairs,
Yep.
and then the other person will express the feeling, their ideas, but they won't have this lack of fear to this fear to discuss with everybody. So in that case, everybody else is going to talk their talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there any other topic or tool? Sorry, is there any other tool that is useful for everybody to help them deal with this fear of conflict in their teams that you would like to share with us?
No, I think that's it. So personality assessments and behavioral assessment, understanding your team composition. Then I usually take them through collaboration and communication workshops, where we actually look at the different personalities and we look at how they show up,
Mm-hmm.
and how they collaborate. The leadership game that you also use. So these are kind of tools that we use when we work with teams. But as a leader, mostly, as I said, um, you know make sure that when you see the team is not discussing the topics you wanted to discuss, make sure you bring those to the table, make sure you
Mm-hmm.
allow the time, and make sure that you kind of moderate that discussion, as we mentioned, having in mind people differences in behavior and personality, so you don't allow that to come first, and people not have the conversation they need to have because of that, because someone might be too dominant and might monopolize the discussion. I think if, if leaders do this, then they're set up for success.
Mm-hmm. and everything will come in time with practice. So if you feel helpless now that you're not doing everything that you could do, just stay focused, keep doing, keep developing them yourself, keep observing yourself, what you're doing good, what you're not doing good, and adapt. And then eventually you will be very, very good at this, at fear of conflict, dealing with all kinds of problems that you have in your team. So keep going, and have faith in
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the only way.
yeah.
All right,
And
Madalina.
yeah, we are
So
going to
you
go
want to add
ahead.
something?
Sorry.
You want to add something else?
No, I just want to let people know what we are preparing for the next
Uh,
session, for the next
Absolutely.
discussion. For the next discussion, we are going to talk about the third dysfunction of a team, which is the lack of commitment. And guess what? It is based on absence of trust and on the fear of conflict. So when you have lack of trust, absence of trust, fear of conflict, then guess what? People might not be committed to their work or your company or the project and so on. So, next time we are going to talk about what is commitment, what is the lack of commitment, and how to deal with having this lack of commitment inside your team. And see you next time.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. Thank you so much for tuning in and see you next Monday. Take care. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye. Take care.